What are the 5 most important minutes of your day? I'm talking about those 5 minutes that if you skip every day, it just kind of messes up the rest of your day, completely breaks your flow. What would that be for you? Now, if you're like most people, it probably involves taking care of your physical needs. That 5 minutes probably involve things such as having breakfast in the morning or taking a shower. But that's not completely right. You see, in terms of our evolution as human beings, we've come to place more priority on our physical needs rather than our emotional and spiritual needs. Let me give you an example. If you did not shower for 7 days, you're going to feel odd about it. You're going to be a little bit stinky, you're going to feel sweaty, and it's going to be abnormal to you. You're going to be conscious about how people perceive you and how you feel. If you skip breakfast every morning for a couple of days, you're going to feel hungry throughout the entire morning. So you're not likely to skip your shower, you're not likely to skip breakfast. But people tend to skip the important 5 minutes that involve taking care of their emotional and mental needs for the day. So what do I mean by taking care of our mental and spiritual needs? Well, I'm talking about making sure that throughout the day, we are completely in a peak state, a state of allowing, a state of flow, a state where we are completely in tune with our vision, we are in bliss, and everything seems to go well. And it isn't hard to get in this state. But in terms of the way we have learned to live our lives, we get upset and conscious if we feel dirty or if we feel hungry. But somehow, we've come to believe that emotional feelings, feelings of stress, anxiety, jealousy, anger, we've come to believe that this is actually tolerable and normal. It isn't. It shouldn't be. And the only reason we think it's normal is because in terms of conscious evolution, we are still way behind our physical evolution. In terms of conscious evolution, we are almost like unshowered cavemen. So what do I mean by 5 minutes a day of practices that help you raise your conscious state? Well, I call it a leverage of time that allows a focused, uninterrupted, natural state. Let me say that again. A leverage of time that allows a focused, uninterrupted, natural state. And it's not a coincidence that that spells a lot of fun. Because really it's about being in a state of bliss, being in a state of happiness throughout the day. It is not normal to be feeling stress or tolerating it, or anger, or jealousy, or any sort of other state of mind that prevents you from really being who you need to be to give your purpose to the world. So what are these leverage of times that you can implement in your life? Well, I'm talking about little things such as daily meditation in the morning, expressing gratitude, looking at your vision board or your goal list. There's a whole ton of different practices. I know people who start their day by getting on gratitude log and logging things they are grateful for. I know people who start their day by reading a few chapters of an inspirational book. People who start their day with philosopher's notes, going through one note on a daily basis. I like to start my day by looking at my goal list and putting myself in a state of meditation. And these are what I want to suggest should be the 5 most important things you do every day. So let's go on to the next question. Why is it that we don't? Because I know for a fact that you skip out on these things on a daily basis. I know because I do too. There's not been a day in the last 1 year where I've skipped out in the shower. Okay, maybe once. But there have been maybe 20, 30, 40 days in the last 1 year where I woke up just feeling lousy. And rather than meditate or get myself back in the correct state of mind, I continued going to work and carried those feelings of lousiness throughout my entire day. What prevents us from really keeping ourselves at a peak conscious state? Here's a suggestion that might make some sense. George Leonard wrote a brilliant book called Mastery. George practiced Aikido, which is a Japanese form of martial arts, which takes years and years and years of practice to really master. And George found that most people give up at Aikido way too soon. In fact, most people give up at anything way too soon. Hand me my giant iPod, please. I'm going to attempt to illustrate this phenomenon with this brilliant device. You see, most of us think that the more we practice, the better we get, and that the line sort of moves this way. The more you practice, as time goes on, the better you get. But in reality, according to George Leonard, this is not how it works. In fact, the path to mastery looks really different. It looks more like this. What George is trying to say is that you practice for a while, and this while could be weeks or months, and you don't really see much of an improvement, but all of a sudden, you make a jump. and then you hit another plateau. And once again, you're practicing for weeks or months, you don't see much of an improvement, but you persist anyway. And then you hit another plateau, and you continue persisting. You hit another plateau. The problem is, most of us are what George Leonard calls dabblers. We start here, we start practicing, we don't feel any change coming on. The change is just around the corner, just around that corner. If we just would keep it up, we're gonna hit a whole new level of mastery, but we give up too soon. And this happens with almost any personal development practice. And this is why so many people, and maybe you do as well, people tend to buy different products and books on personal growth. They try out different things, but they never really reach a scale of mastery in anything. Jose Silva, who's one of my favorite teachers in the personal development movement, used to say that 5 minutes of meditation a day is good. 10 minutes is very good. 15 minutes is excellent. And if you meditate once a day, that's good. Twice a day, very good. 3 times a day, excellent. But you know what? Most people who take a Silva course don't even get to 5 minutes a day, even though those 5 minutes are so critical. So let me read you a quote by George Leonard. How do you move towards mastery? To put it simply, you practice diligently, but you practice primarily for the sake of the practice itself. This, in essence, is what I call blisscipline, that the most important discipline that you can add to your life is the discipline of keeping yourself in a state of bliss every single day. And that's why these 5 minutes every single day, whether you're expressing gratitude or being in a state of meditation or staring at your vision board or reading a philosopher's notes or going into a Silva method meditation or any kind of meditation, these are critical moments that you don't want to miss out on. So remember, the essence of everything in personal growth, everything that you learn from almost any book out there, any video or post you've seen on Finer Minds, my blog, it's really about being in that right state of mind where you are fully conscious of your creative ability and you're fully moving towards your goals and your aspirations. And you're doing it from a state of comfort where you're happy, you're secure, you are in a state of bliss, and things seem to work for you auto-magically. That's the essence of what everything is pretty much about. People call it different names. I love how Esther Hicks explained it. She calls it being in a state of allowing. And this is how she defines it. Tuned in, tapped in, and turned on. It's a way of describing a person who's in complete vibrational alignment with his or her higher being. Tuned in. I love that phrase. Being completely tuned in to your consciousness and who you truly are. In fact, the practice, those 5 minutes a day, I like to call it mind tuning. Simple 5-minute daily practices that help me fine-tune or mind-tune yourself to be in that perfect state for the rest of the day. So think about it and try incorporating something like this into your life. This is Vishen Lakhiani. Thanks for watching. And actually, while we're talking about iPads and Caveman, check this out. This is my favorite iPad app. Rawr! Rawr! My kid loves that. I'm sorry. Anyway, go on and meditate.